Well, I made a little flight today from Gulf Shores, Alabama to Pickens, Georgia, which is north of Atlanta. To get the plane painted. And I had a little trouble finding the airport. So this video is going to be about how to find the invisible airport. And what you see now is an airport on the way called Alexandria. And you can see I had no problem seeing this airport. I could have landed there. Now I'm descending out of 9,500. You can see I'm all the way down to 2,900 descending here, hunting for this airport. I'm about 10 miles to the west of the Pickens County Airport in Georgia, which is in Jasper, Georgia. Never been in here before. And looking on my map, it looks like it should be right in front of me. Just at a quick glance, where's this airport? I should be able to see it. As you saw in the prior video, I could easily see Alexandria Airport from miles and miles away. So the elevation of the airport is 1,500 feet. I'm dropping down to about 2,500 feet here to get to pattern altitude so I can find this airport. And it's just nowhere in sight. There's nothing in sight. There's nothing out here. No town, no city, no roads, nothing. So I look at the chart real good again, and seeing this ridge coming up, finally figure out that the airport's on the other side of the ridge. And I should have known that to begin with, because I should have studied the charts better. But I have a great Garmin setup. I've got two G3Xs, and I had the MFD, or the one on the right side, set full screen for terrain. And slowly but surely it's starting to turn yellow, which means I'm less than 1,000 feet above the surface. That's not where I want to be. I don't like yellow. And if you see red, you're really in trouble, because that means you're below the surface. So I immediately start climbing, and I'm getting also audio terrain warning from the Garmin setup, which is great. I don't fly in the mountains very often. I'm in lower Alabama along the Gulf Coast. Most of my flights are in Florida, so I'm what they call a flatlander. I just fly around flat land most of the time. Now, I have flown out west through the mountains, but when you're doing true mountain flying, you normally stay on the airways, and you have a profile view of some kind with ForeFlight or on the Garmin setup, and you can make sure you're above all the terrain. I mean, that's a must. And I always fly IFR usually if I'm going somewhere I haven't been before or it's unfamiliar territory. Today was so pretty that I just decided I'm going VFR. I didn't have any real airspace to travel through, so just a nice, beautiful day for a flight, and I was on my own. Well, when you're on your own, you got to do everything. So here I'm climbing up. I'm up to about 3,200 feet. I noticed that the top of the ridge was marked on the chart at about 2,300 feet. So I'm a good 1,000 feet above it. Although to me, when I come back and look at this video, it certainly looks closer. But I cleared the ridge with no problem. And I always have an out if you're mountain flying. I saw the ridge coming up. I could have easily made a turn, left or right, done a 360 with plenty of time to make sure that I'm not going to run into this terrain. And like I said, if it was IFR weather, I'd be on an IFR flight plan. And we'll show some charts at the end of the video here, and you'll be able to see the minimum descent altitude for the approaches is 4,000 feet, well above any elevation. You would get some kind of instruction like maintain 4,000 to establish. You'd be perfectly safe landing here in instrument conditions. So those are probably some good things to look at even when you're VFR, and kind of give you a clue as to what the surroundings of the airport is like. Anyhow, I finally spotted the airport. You see it's in front of me there. And I always fly a standard pattern. especially coming into an airport that I'm unfamiliar with. You don't know what the traffic is in the area. You don't know what other planes are doing. So I entered the 45 to the downwind. Flying downwind now, and then I'll do a left base and a final. And you know, the temptation is to just start out at a left base and do it that way, but don't. By flying these standard patterns every time you land at an airport, everything looks the same. It doesn't matter what airport it is, what elevation it is. If you fly the standard pattern at 1,000 feet above the altitude of the airport, every landing is going to look exactly the same, feel the same, performance is the same. It's just a much safer thing to do, even on a beautiful day like this. And so here I am, getting ready to turn final to the runway. And at this point, it's an easy deal. Everything's working out. I'm where I'm supposed to be, altitude-wise. Flaps in, get the power back, and I'll land on the airport. Just so happens as I come up here, there are 2 aircraft waiting to take off. So that's why you always want to fly your standard pattern, make your announcements on the common frequency of what you're doing, and that way everybody stays safe and everything works out. So I'm just about on final here. It's a little bit gusty out today, and I had some winds at the last minute, and that's the beauty of ForeFlight and all the panels that are out there now. I can read the weather before I get there. It showed that the winds were gusty. So I just stayed a little bit high until I got down, and you can see I got a gust right at the end there that kind of rocked the airplane. So I just held it off and let the airplane settle down on the runway. We have plenty of runway, 5,000 feet. I stopped in less than 1,000 feet. So I was in no hurry. Don't ever be in a hurry. And made a nice smooth landing. Everything's good. Now I'm going to taxi over to the paint shop and leave my little experimental off here for a brand new paint job, which I'm really excited about. And right now the plane is white with gray pinstripes, so I can't wait to show you guys what it's going to look like when it's done. And at the end of this, I'll show you a few charts that will explain where I was flying and what I should have looked at 100% before I made the flight up here. Here's some charts, and first chart here is just a aerial chart. Now here's our VFR chart, and you see there's a 2352 there with a dot. Should have given me a clue. Now we look at the IFR chart. There's no clue as to any terrain here except minimum altitudes, like 5,600 on Victor 415. And then here's a terrain map which really shows you real well the ridges. 2333 feet at Sharp Mountain. The other one is at 1903. Here's the approach chart. And as I mentioned earlier, 4,000 feet still established. And then the last thing is the airport facility directory, and this shows you some takeoff minimums, and you see it doesn't want you to turn before 3,000, 3,100 feet. So always check your charts, and that'll give you a good clue as to what it's going to take to find the airport.